Learning that Earth is a school allowed me to remove my consciousness from the hurt, the betrayal, the damage that was caused to me, right? And the pain, the damage, the pain, the betrayal, the hurt, the agony, the unforgiveness, the resentments, whether I wanted to acknowledge that I had them or not, I had them, right? And so what that did for me was that I was able to remove my consciousness from being attached to the pain, the betrayal, the hurt. It allowed me to be able to forgive, right? Because I understood. At first it was a bit uncomfortable and a bit weird to adapt the idea that Earth is a school, right? And that prior to incarnating here, I chose the experiences that I was going to go through, right? And that some, were meant to happen, and then some, either I made a space for them to happen due to my behaviors and the things that I chose to indulge in, or, circumstances happen where, they just happened, right? But because took, I literally removed myself from those experiences, whatever attachments I had to those experiences, specifically the dark ones, right? When we're speaking about abuse, when we're speaking about taking someone's innocence, right? Those hard ones, right? Things that were done to me, things that I did, right? It freed me. It freed me because I basically left all of that there behind, and I decided to move on, right? And what I did was I took the lessons from it. Like, what was I supposed to learn? Because when we experience certain things at a certain age, it manifests into our adult life as, having fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, right? And then it manifests into relationships coming in that like, they either abandon you or you end up abandoning yourself and being extra for certain people because you don't want to be abandoned. You don't want to be left out, right? So it allowed me to face those trials and tribulations that I kept not wanting to face because I didn't want to be alone, right? And then what happened there was that I learned that I enjoyed my own company so much, right? That I'm a cool person to be around, like that I enjoy my company. And so let's go back to, because I thrive by myself. So we're not going to get into that. I need to be out there, but we're going to go back to the part of changing, leaving the conscious, like removing the consciousness from those bad spirits. Because if you look at it, I see everything as spirit, right? The spirit of unforgiveness, the spirit of envy, the spirit of jealousy. I identify the spirits that I'm operating through or I was operating through, the spirits that other people were operating through, and I get the lesson out of it. If it's envy, I look at it like, what is it that you're trying to teach me? What is it that I feel like I can get for myself, or what is it that I think that I can have? Why am I feeling this way? That's how I look at it, right? And then I just leave it behind. I don't need it anymore. There's a monitoring spirit just hanging around here. It is what it is. And I say this because these are things that people like nobody taught us. And so it's I in this world there are multiple versions of ourselves. Like, I believe that humanity are we're projections of one another, right? And sometimes we encounter versions of ourselves throughout the world, right? I honestly believe that we have to encounter those versions of ourselves. The successful version, the one that that has the house or the things, the material things that you want, the one that has the internal parts that you want, like the healing version of yourself, the one that's a doctor, the one that's a lawyer, the one that's a football player, the one that's a volleyball star, the one that's an actor, a lawyer, a novelist, right? I believe that there are multiple versions of ourselves, like of each possibility there's a version of ourselves, right? And so I had the privilege of meeting the versions of myself that didn't heal from what I've went through, right? And so before I started my healing journey, I would meet these people and I would try to be for them what I wanted for me. And it kept me in a cycle because I wasn't being there for me because of my abandonment wounds, right? And I needed to heal. And so the last version of myself that I met was the complete opposite of who I am. And every version of myself I loved. I love. But with this last version of me, I learned to, I was able to point it out, identify it, right? And I put down my cape wanting to be the savior because I was learning to save myself, right? And self-preservation, I was learning self-preservation at that time. And so during that time, I also began my spiritual awakening, right? And so this is when I started to learn about how Earth is a school and we go to certain things and the goal is to let things go, to choose ourselves, to heal, right? And so some of us lived in so much pain when in reality we can choose to anchor in a new reality. It's all about our consciousness, about choosing to heal, choosing to forgive, choosing to let go.